at listening, okay, and our mouths are not speaking, okay? Mouths are not speaking. Okay, so yesterday, who wants to remind me what you were talking about? Hey.
2D shapes.
2D shapes, very good. What specifically did you talk about with 2D? When you say 2D, we're talking about two-dimensional shapes.
That means shapes that are flat.
Shapes that are flat, very good. Two-dimensional shapes are shapes that are flat. What is something that we learned about two-dimensional shapes? If you see on the board, we have some examples. So if we look at this circle, we notice that that circle is round. Does it have any sides?
Yeah.
Does it have any, what is that other big word that you talked about yesterday?
Faces.
Okay, faces are on three-dimensional shapes.
Vertices.
Vertices, good job, vertices. And a vertice is a corner. Does a circle have any vertices, guys?
No.
No vertices, no sides. Okay, it's just a round line.
It got a
It
line.
doesn't oval. Okay, so we talked about those features. Those are all features. Your sides, so this is the side of a square. This is the vertice of a square. Okay, and most shapes have sides and vertices except your circle and your oval, which is a round line. Okay, so, Kaden, what is it, buddy?
What? Circle don't have a S.
Why does circle not have an S? Because what happens with the sound?
But in my it's a soft sound.
It's a soft C. Okay, soft C. Okay, that's why it doesn't have an S. It sounds like, but C also sometimes shares the same sound. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can you please go sit down?
With the I or the
Please go
with
sit
the
down.
I in front, the R, it's hard.
The R is sometimes hard, sometimes.
If the C was hard, it would make cup. But soft.
Where's your math book? Can you take your math book out, okay? Alright, so today we're going to talk a little bit more about the two-dimensional shapes. Okay. Yesterday we talked about defining features of two-dimensional shapes, which is their vertices, their sides, and how different shapes have different amounts of sides and different amounts of vertices depending on how they're composed. Today we are going to talk about how we can use these shapes to make new things. Okay, so we're going to use rectangles and triangles and squares and put them together. We're going to combine them so that we can make new shapes. Okay, so before we get started on today's lesson, we're going to go over these shapes to make sure that we all know what the shape names are. We're going to be hearing these names throughout the lesson. Okay, so I'm going to point and you're going to say the name of the shape. You ready?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, diamond or rhombus. Okay, diamond or rhombus. That's a pentagon. Some of you said hexagon. A pentagon has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides, but a hexagon has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. That's correct.
That's just one less.
And what is this? Very good. Now I'm going to leave these shapes will be left up here. So if we talk about a shape and you're not sure what it is, these shapes will be here so you can look at them. Okay. But remember, today we're going to be combining shapes. Okay. We're going to be combining them. So we're going to be putting them together. So what does it mean to combine? Putting it together.
And don't put your dots and dots.
Okay. So. First thing that I want you to do to think about it is I want you to look at this picture that I have put up on the board. Okay, this is a picture of what?
House. Can I feel one?
But if you look closer at that picture and you break it down into the different shapes, what are some of the shapes that you see? Please raise your hand to share. Bailey.
Square.
Okay, you see squares. Where do you see squares at?
Then the house.
Okay, the house itself, in the house or the house itself? What color are the squares that you see?
Rectangle. Yellow and blue.
Okay, so this yellow right here, does that look like a square? Why is it not a square?
Because it
Graceland?
because it is longer.
Because it's longer, and a square has equal sides, right? All sides are equal. And if we look at this, the top is longer than the
It's a
side.
rectangle.
So it's a what, Katie?
Rectangle.
Rectangle, okay? But what about the blue ones?
Square.
Those are squares, okay? Mia, what do you see?
Oval.
Oval, where do you see an oval?
And
In the grass, very good. There's an oval right there. What do we think that oval might be
I see
representing?
another
Water, very good. So what do you see?
That's not oval.
A triangle,
That's
okay?
not oval.
Where do you see a triangle?
Up there on top of the house.
What color?
Orange.
Orange, okay? So he sees an orange triangle represents the roof of the house. Is there
I
another
just
triangle
saw
up
it.
there?
Yes, Miss-
Robert?
No, but I do see a circle.
You see a circle, okay? Where do we see a circle?
In the sky.
In the sky. What does the circle represent?
No.
The moon, okay? So if we look at this picture, we see that there are all kinds of shapes that are put together to make an image, okay? So we're going to be working on that today, okay? So let's put our hands
It's
down.
orange is white. Miss Blaine.
Remember, we must raise our hand, Katie. We don't blurt out. Yes, Chesley.
There is another.
There is another triangle. Where at?
It's on the tree.
It is on the
There's
tree.
another
Very good.
oval, but that way on that tree.
Another oval on the other tree. Okay, so the oval and triangle represents the shapes of the tops of the trees. Okay? Yes. It looks like a triangle in the door. Right there? It's a rectangle. Very good, Chesley. Correct. Okay, so what we're going to do is we can look at that and we can see how we can look at that picture and we can see how they combine those shapes to make a picture. Well, now I'm going to let you watch a quick video that actually shows you a house being built from shapes. Now, pay attention to the shapes. Pay attention to the shapes that they use. Okay?
Can you see? Who said that?
Now, I'm going to restart it so you can hear it.
Triangle. Rectangle.
Let's make sure we're listening, okay? We're listening, our ears are open and our mouths are closed.
Triangle. Rectangle. Rectangle. Square. Square. It looks like a house. Square. Square. And then a square? Triangle. Triangle. Circle. Circle. Oh, it's gonna make a house with a H. U. S. E. House.
All right, remind me, what were some of the shapes they used to make that house? Creighton.
Square.
A square, okay. Cambry. Rectangles, very good. Chesley,
Circle.
very good. Got one more shape. Mia. Okay, we said squares already, so we've said square, we've said rectangle, and we've said circle.
I know one.
Bradley.
Triangle.
Triangle, very good. So they use 4 shapes and different sizes to make an image, okay, to make a picture. So we can also combine shapes together to make other shapes, and we're going to get into that a little bit more in our lesson. So if you have your math book open, you should have it open to lesson 3, which is on page 443. And I'm going to put the
I'm not supposed to
handout up on the board for you. I'm going to put the handout up on the board. Kari, please go put that in your cubby. Okay, so we should be right here on this page, page 443.
443?
Page 443, yes.
Uh-oh, it's broken.
Yeah, it's not broken. All right, so like I said, today's objectives, we are going to be composing shapes using two-dimensional shapes. So we're going to take squares and triangles and circles and trapezoids, and we're going to be putting them together to make other shapes, okay? So the I can statement for today says I can put two-dimensional shapes together to make a named shape. Okay, so what that says is, hey, I can take two squares and put them together and make a rectangle. Very good. Okay, I can take those two shapes and put them together and make a rectangle. Or I can take those two shapes. I don't know if I can turn it. It's really not quite as easy because it doesn't adjust. All right, if the triangles were small, that's what I was trying to make. The triangles would be smaller. What shape does that kind of look like?
Two chins. No. Trapezoid.
Like a trapezoid. Okay, so you can take a rectangle and then two triangles on either side and make a trapezoid. Okay, so what we're going to do here on that first page is we're going to use two-dimensional shapes to make a picture. Just like the picture that we saw of the house. They took two-dimensional shapes and they made a picture. So I'm going to hand out, everybody's going to get a bucket of shape manipulatives. Every group is. And you're going to take these manipulatives and in that box, that space on your handout, you're going to use those, you share them with your group, you're going to use those manipulatives to make an image on your box. And then you're going to draw it, okay? So you're going to take about 1 minute, okay? Pull out some of those shapes, make a... Good job. You want to make a shape? You want to make some shapes? You want to do anything with the shape? You can draw it afterwards. Are you sure? Darling, let's do the shapes. Alright, so remember, you are putting together a picture using those shapes. And once you get your picture put together, you're going to draw it. That's okay. So now that you have it made, I want you to draw it.
There's no more.
Okay, once I see the picture that you made, I'm going to ask you to draw it, okay? And I want to see it in pencil. Good. Okay, can you show me what that is?
Go get your printer. Go get your printer.
It's sort of like a trapezoid. It is a little like a trapezoid, but a trapezoid would be flat.
Kari.
Okay, it would be flat. Okay? Make you anything. You can, right now you are making anything that you want to make. You're just putting those shapes together and making anything that you want.
Oh, is it anything?
Anything you want, as long as you have shapes put together. And then you draw those shapes. So that looks like, what does that look like?
Zyla.
It does look a little bit like a rocket ship. I can see that. So now draw it for me.
But why you get name part on it?
You can make another one of those pictures, absolutely. This time, try to make one using more shapes. Okay, try to make one using more shapes. Okay, draw it for me. Make sure when you draw your shapes that you actually show the shapes that you use to make shapes.
Thank you.
Very good. It looks kind of like an arrow. It's kind of like an arrow. That's very good. Can you draw it for me now? Make sure that you show the rectangles and the squares. What shape
I'm
do you
making a
use?
poster. A square here.
Very good. So I need to see those two triangles, those two squares.
Okay, I'll just wait till one
Good job. I like your detail. Okay, we're doing 2D, not 3D, so we want the leg, make sure that we go flat, okay, because we're doing 2D, not 3D. And a 3D shape, a 2D shape can't stand up, it lays flat, okay, so we're doing 2D shapes. Very good, good job drawing. And what shapes did you show me here?
You gotta use what you have.
Very good.
I'm trying to make a purse.
What shapes did you use?
Look, come look. I'm circling.
And what is
I need
it?
one more of this.
Rhombus, very good. So make sure when you draw it for me, make sure that I can see those trapezoids and that rhombus, okay? Right, and what do you have?
I'm trying to make a purse.
Okay. It's like a star. And how did you make it a star? With diamonds.
I made a sun.
Another name is rhombus. Okay, so when you draw this, I want you to show me the rhombus, okay? All right, and you draw it for me, okay? Kari, where's yours? Okay, so what is this? Tell me what it is. A house, okay. What shape did you use to make it?
I know, it's okay. You can get your grandma tomorrow. This number of points you
What
can
is
get,
it?
okay? Valid.
Okay, what is it? You want a good day?
It's touch and go like every 5 minutes. Different movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so that's right, okay, it's a triangle. So you need a rectangle, a square and a triangle. So now I want you to draw that for me. And when you draw it, make sure you show me those shapes, okay? Alright. Alright, 1, 2. Alright, your time is up to play with the shape manipulatives. You should now be drawing, if you have not already drawn, your shape on your handout. Okay, I'm going to give you another minute to do that, and we're going to move on.
I'm trying to make a person.
Okay, good job. What is that? It's an elaborate. Okay, so what did you make? What did you use to make? No, these are triangles. But what is this one? What color is it that I would? Green. It's a trapezoid. Okay? It's a trapezoid. Okay. And Kaylin, you made a person. What shapes did you use to make your person? Hexagon. Okay, it's a hexagon. You got it. Go ahead and say it. You got it. That's correct. It's a trapezoid. Not a cube, but a square. Okay, a square. And this is a very good, good job. All right, we're going to go ahead and take those manipulatives and put them back in the basket, please. That's cool. It looks kind of like a boat too. Is this a softball? It's like a plate.
I changed mine up.
It looks like an angel. Yours looks like a flower. Okay. Alright, I'm looking around to see which groups have placed good job, have placed their shapes back in their baskets. Can you please put your shapes away? Oh, that looks like a bug. That is really good. Okay. Let's make sure we put our shapes back in our basket. We are going to get ready to move to the next page. So after you have put your shapes away, we're going to turn our page over to 444. We should be on page 444. Thank you, group 7. You were drawing what the shape that you made.
I made a rocket.
It was a beautiful one. What shapes did you use in that rocket, Elena? You remember?
I think you called it diamond. That's what this thing
It is a diamond or a rhombus, yes ma'am. That's correct. That's a hexagon.
And I
Good job. Turn your page. Okay, so when you draw it, I need to see those two triangles, your diamond and your hexagon, okay? Make sure that you show it to me.
Wait, can I trace it?
You did good. I see all of your shapes there. That is a really good drawing. Really good illustration. Okay.
Yeah, I need this.
That's good. Now you need to put them away, okay, and clean your desk off. Or clean your shapes away. Alright, we are on page 444. When you have finished your drawing and you turned over to page 444, I will know that because your head is down and your thumb is up. Thank you, Dante. Okay, girls, we need to move on. Okay, page 444, please. We do have papers. All right, Craven will be up in moments. Yes, ma'am. Craven, you're going home, sweetheart. Let's just pass up. Who is our helper today? Caitlin, will you please come take? You can get the toys back right there, okay?
What's going on?
Caitlin. Caitlin's taking her. Okay, so now that we have gotten our hands in with the shapes a little bit and we've got to see what it's like to build shapes, we're going to look at making specific named shapes, okay? So here we're going to use blocks or shapes to combine and make another shape, okay? So for instance, we're going to use squares to make rectangles. Kind of how I did on that example I showed you. I put two squares together and made a rectangle, okay? So our instructions on the handout says, on A, Marta combines shapes to make a trapezoid. Which one of these is a trapezoid?
The green
Green one. Here's my trapezoid. Okay, so we're going to use shapes to make a trapezoid. What shapes might I be able to use to make a trapezoid? Maybe. What shapes could I put together to make a trapezoid? So let's see, if I draw a trapezoid, okay, what shapes could I put inside of that? All right. remember that example that I showed earlier?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, okay, right here. Triangle. You make the end. I got a square and then yes, I did. This blank. Oh, this blank.
Hold on.
A rocket. How's it
Well, it doesn't want to stay there. All right, what shapes did I use here? What shapes did I use there? Triangles and a rectangle. And what shape did I make? Graceland?
It made a trapezoid.
A trapezoid, okay? So it's got 2 slanted sides, 2 straight sides, and 4 vertices. Okay, I made a trapezoid. Okay, so now I want you to show me another way that you can make a trapezoid. Draw it on your paper. What's another way? Instead of using a rectangle, what else could we use?
A square.
Show me. I want you to show it to me. I'm walking around to see it on your paper. Show me how you can draw shapes to make a trapezoid.
Where do we put that on the next page?
On the next page, we should be on page 144. Right here. We're going to draw in that first box under A. What can we put together to make a trapezoid? I did a rectangle and 2 triangles. Okay, you did the same thing I did. I want you to do something different. Okay, what did you use? 2 squares. Good job. 2 squares. Okay, you did a square and 2 triangles. Okay, that makes a trapezoid. Very good. Okay, what's this shape? A square. Okay, so a square and 2 triangles. That works. Okay, a square and 2 triangles. Cambry, what did you use? Cambry, what did you use to make a trapezoid? Cambry, can you hold your head up for me, please? Can you hold your head up for me, please? Okay. Look up there on the board. Which color is a trapezoid? Green. Okay, so I want you to draw me a trapezoid. Show me what a trapezoid would look like. Okay? I'm going to come back around and I want to see that trapezoid on that paper, okay?
We have to make it without it.
Alright, well, you can leave. Okay. Okay, so you need to trace it. That's okay. You can trace it. But no, not Alright. So, 1, 2. Alright, so I drew my trapezoid using a rectangle. So we take a rectangle and we draw 2 triangles off to the side. And that makes a trapezoid. Raise your hand if you did something different. Okay. Chansley, what did you do? What shapes did you use?
I used a square and 2 triangles.
A square and 2 triangles, okay? Did anybody else do a square and 2 triangles? Okay. Did anybody do something different besides 1 square and 2 triangles?
Yes.
Okay. Maylee.
I did 2 squares.
2 squares. Okay, so Chesley and some of the others did a square. And my square is not very square. Did a square and 2 triangles. Does that still make a trapezoid? Yes. Okay, what about 2 squares? 1, 2 squares. And a trapezoid? Yes. Okay, so all of those are ways that you could have made a trapezoid. Okay? Moving on. We're going to move to part
you didn't
B.
do triangles. I did only triangles.
You did one with only triangles. Very good. So, I'm sorry. I didn't know, Robert, that you did it a different way. So, Robert actually said he made his with triangles. So, if we take those squares and we separate them and turn them just the right way, we can make a trapezoid using only triangles. Okay? Thank you for pointing that out, Robert. All right, so part B says, we all ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Ethan combined shapes to make a hexagon. What color is my hexagon? Mia? Ethan? What color is my hexagon? So, my hexagon's blue? Okay, well that's blue. Is that a hexagon?
That's like a greenish blue.
Like a greenish blue. Okay, so are we saying that this is the hexagon?
Yes,
You are correct. This is a hexagon. So Ethan combined shapes to make a hexagon. What shapes could Ethan combine together to make a hexagon? Maylee? Two trapezoids. So Maylee says that we could combine two trapezoids to make a hexagon. So I have a trapezoid here and a trapezoid here. And if I turn it and I put it just right, does that look like a hexagon? Little bit? Little bit? It's a little narrow, right? So it's a skinny, a very, very skinny one. Because those trapezoids are extremely skinny. Okay? But if I take two trapezoids and I turn them over on top of each other, that makes a hexagon. Well, we just learned that we can make trapezoids different ways, right?
Yeah, like triangles.
So what are some other shapes that I could use to make that hexagon?
Triangles.
Triangles. Okay, how many triangles do we think it would take? So here's our trapezoid that we had with triangles, right? So how many triangles would it take? You could take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 triangles to make a trapezoid. How many trapezoids does it take to make a hexagon?
12.
It would take 12 triangles. Very good to make a hexagon. Okay, 12 triangles. So we would have 2 trapezoids made from triangles sitting on top of each other. Okay? So now I want you to draw me a hexagon on your paper. You can use trapezoids, squares, or what other thing can we use? We can use trapezoids, squares, or triangles. Okay, so let me see that hexagon. That is a triangle. Yes, ma'am, you can use triangles. That is very good. You did a hexagon using triangles. Very good. Beautiful. Now draw it for me right here. Good job. You don't know what to do? Use what shape is that? Short shape. Grab your shapes. Make one. Okay, that's a hexagon. But I want you to show me what shapes you can put together. What shapes can you put together? Okay, take that ponytail and put that way up. You're getting somewhere, but I think you might need something different. Maybe a little more. Good job, ma'am.
Can I use it?
Okay, so you're have to have a lot. That is a very good analysis, but you're going to draw it for me here now, okay? Okay, so how could you use a square to make a
Good idea.
How can you use a square to make a hexagon? What can you add to it? What are the shapes can you do? Okay, maybe the shape is too deep. Okay, so maybe you shouldn't be trying to make it on the side. Maybe you should have to put it on the side. So we said that we could do two trapezoids, right? Okay, it's like two trapezoids. Okay, so think back to the part A. What did you use to make that trapezoid? What shape did you put together? Okay, they can go into triangles. So what shape could you use to make your hexagon? Okay, you make two triangles. You don't have to use it, you can just draw it. Okay, so draw it and show it to me right now. So you made how many hexagons? Very good. You did good. You did 4 triangles. Okay. I need to see you draw it. Okay. So what is this? What shape did you just make? What? No. What is the shape that you made? Hexagon. What shape did you just make? Very good. All right. So 1, 2. All right. I want you to raise your hand if you use a square in your hexagon. Raise your hand if you use a square in your hexagon. Anybody? Could I use a square in my hexagon? Let's see. If I draw a square right here with a triangle on either side, that looks like a trapezoid, right? So could I have a square? If I have a square here and a square here on the bottom, with triangles coming off the side, does that make a hexagon? Yes. So could I use squares? Yes. Okay. Raise your hand if you use a triangle.
I use square.
I've only asked you to raise your hands. I can't hear everybody speaking at one time, but I can certainly look out and see everybody's hand up if it's raised. So raise your hand if you use triangles in your hexagon, or even just one. Okay, what about trapezoids? Who used trapezoids? Raise your hand. Okay, so the majority of you use trapezoids. What about a rhombus? Do you think we could use a rhombus to make a hexagon? Robert says yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
You agree with Robert? Okay. Does anybody want to show how that works? Want to make it?
Yeah, I already made it. See?
Robert made it already. All right, so Robert took.
I'm making something different.
Robert took 3.
How? How?
He took 3 rhombuses and he put them together, turning them sideways and lining up their sides and their vertices. And he made a what shape is that? It's 3 rhombuses and they made a what? What did those rhombuses make? What is the shape? What is the shape on the outside, guys? A hexagon. So So the question was, can we use a rhombus in a hexagon? Yes. Yes. Okay, you can.
I'm gonna make a hexagon.
Alright, 1, 2.
My eyes on you.
Thank you, Robert, for showing Bradley and Giannis how to make it. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and answer this question on the bottom. It says, what other shapes can you use to make a hexagon? Okay, so some of you use trapezoids, and we learned that you can use a rhombus
How much hexagons I made?
or triangles. So you need to take your pencil, and on the lines it says, what other shapes can you use?
I can't say. Now I can do it.
Here.
How are we gonna read?
Hold on, I'm going to write it really big for you, okay? Rhombus
Or
or triangles. Uh-oh. And squares. So rhombus or triangles and squares.
Can y'all sit down? I cannot.
Rhombus or triangles and squares. Okay.
Every time I write, I miss something I don't know.
We can write quietly. If we're writing, that means our pencils are smoking and our mouths are not moving. We see smoke coming from our pencils. What is it? Okay, we're down here now, okay? Okay, so if you hold it like this, okay, you just try to hold it on this side. Nope, nope, hold it. You gotta hold it on this side. There you go. And then trace with the other one. That's good. I like your combination there. You did good. That's good. Yep, that looks good. Now make sure you do this part, okay?
Can't sleep in the classroom. Wake 'em up.